Now that we've worked through understanding when matrix multiplication can occur and then the situations where it's undefined, and then actually going through that process of how we can multiply two matrices with one another, what we need to do now is really kind of build some understanding in terms of like why exactly do we do that when we multiply matrices? Like how does that make sense and why does it make sense? And the best way to go about that is to put this into applications so you can see why we're always pairwise multiplying numbers from a row of the first matrix with a column of the second matrix, etc. So here we have that the highest scoring game ever, at least at this point in NFL history, happened between the Washington Redskins, that was the name of the team at the time, and then the New York Giants back in 1966. So you can see the different types of scoring that the teams had done during the game and the frequency of those. So TD stands for touchdown, and then field goal, safety, and then the PAT is the point after touchdown, which people commonly refer to as the extra point. So we're going to try to come up with a final score of the game, and I'm going to show you how we can do that using matrix multiplication. So I'm going to create a matrix, and the labels are going to be really important for you to understand why matrix multiplication works as it does. So obviously I put numbers, but the labels and the organization of it is really critical to what's going on right here. So I want you to understand that the columns right here are really giving you the different types of ways in which the team scored their points. And then the rows right here are really telling you the teams that had scored each of those different types of things. So what we of course want to do then is if we've got a matrix that gives us the frequency of touchdowns, field goals, safeties, and point after touchdowns for each team, then we're going to want to multiply it by the worth of each of these. And I've summarized that in this little box up here, that a touchdown is worth 6, and then a field goal is worth 3, safety is worth 2, and the extra point is worth 1. So I'm going to want to multiply by another matrix. And so it does turn out that if the first matrix is a 2x4 matrix, then of course, because you need the two middle numbers to be the same there, then this has to be a 4. So we need 4 rows. And it turns out that we actually just will have one column because we just need 6 points, 3 points, 2 points, and 1 point. So understand that the rows of that second matrix actually do correspond to the touchdown, field goal, safety, and point after touchdown, right? So this 4 right here does mean like those 4 in the columns, and this 4 right here does mean the same exact labels, but now in the rows, right? So that's a really important aspect to understand in this multiplication. And then also this 2 right here is really corresponding to the fact that there's 2 rows right there with Washington and New York. So when we do multiply this out, of course you're going to get an answer that's going to have 2 rows in it and then have 1 column in it. And what we should expect to have happen then is actually, because this 2 carried over, then that 2 is actually going to correspond to the same 2 teams of Washington and New York. And then if we treat this 1 right here as like the points that each thing is worth, and that point is going to carry over as well. So when we get our final answer of 2 rows and 1 column, we should expect to have the same labels for the 2 rows, so Washington and New York, but then that same label for the 1 of points. So we should be able to get, right, the total number of points for Washington then, and the total number of points for New York, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. So if we carry out this multiplication, we always take an entire row of the first matrix, and then pairwise multiply with the entire column of the second matrix. So 10 times 6 is going to give you 60, and that makes sense, right, because 10 touchdowns each worth 6 points, and then a field goal is worth 3. 1 times 3 is 3. No safety, so of course they didn't get any points there. 0 times 2 is 0, and then 9 times 1 is 9. So if you add that all together, it turns out that they ended up scoring 72 points. The Washington football team did. And then we'll need to do just one last little component of this, which is to take New York's number of scoring things there, and then just multiply it by the points that they're all worth, right? So you're just going to have 6 touchdowns worth 6 apiece is 36 points. nothing there, and then 5 points from extra points. So 36 plus 5 gives you 41, and then that just gives you the answer, right? So hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight in terms of how we kind of organize matrices in terms of multiplying them, and gives you a little bit of sense in terms of why matrix multiplication actually works as it does.